Yet another week of Overwatch League action has flashed by, and it's strange to say, there's now only one more week of regular season matches to be played before we enter the play-in tournament and playoffs. But as usual, I'm back today to update my power rankings once again. The teams secured their playoff spots, with some even finishing their regular season altogether. So let's get underway and start as normal from the bottom. My bottom 5 from 20 to 16 remains largely unchanged, with the Boston Uprising still at 20, just like the Dallas Fuel at 19, Toronto Defiant at 18, and Houston Outlaws at 17. But joining them this week, at 16, the Shanghai Dragons, after falling 6 spots. When it comes to talking about Boston and Dallas, I don't think there's anything else to really add on top of what's already been said, continued over the past few weeks. Both of these sides do occasionally offer some glimpses of hope and potential, with Colourhex having quite a strong week of performances, whilst Taimu himself had a few pop-off moments. That said, they never truly looked competitive in any of their series they've played, compounded by a 4-0 and 3-1 defeat each this week, which looks destined to push both teams to 0-7 stages, with vast improvement needed in all areas of play. And despite Dallas killing me as an EU fan, with their delay against the charge at the end of Sunday, supposedly the client was at fault, but I'm on to you and your mouse, Hunko. However, the fact that they faced tougher opponents in Hangzhou and Guangzhou, as well as the fact they finally played Mickey to the delight of everyone watching, is the reason why I have them one spot higher. Toronto, meanwhile, did finish their season this week. When you lose your last game of the season 4-0 to Florida, it does just sum up what a decline this team has had. It's a shame as well, because I think that some of their players like Logix, Mangachu, Gods and Neko have all occasionally shown their quality, highlighting the potential in this team, but it's made them more competitive than the two teams below them at the stage. But finishing with a 1-6 record gives me no real choice but to have them this low, unfortunately. Credit to Houston, however, as I think they've had the best final stage of all of these teams in this group, despite their disappointing record of 1-6. They've always given the teams they've faced some sort of trouble, defeating the Gladiators early on and taking Washington and Chengdu to all 5 maps. With all the rumours surrounding their behind-the-scenes issues, I have to say fair play to the players who stuck at it and performed admirably. But that doesn't disguise the obvious flaws in their game at every role, which is why I have them here. Shanghai enter my bottom 5 as their stage 4 decline continues. It just seems that the Mei Hanzo or Mei Reaper meta that we currently sit in just doesn't suit the Dragons at all. This isn't helped by indecision at DPS, with which players they want to play, with Ding, DM and Youngjun being consistently subbed in and out. With only one win to their name this stage, we need to hope that with their play on spot confirmed, either the meta shifts back to more Widow and Pharah, or that one of their tank players can master Sigma, because their struggles only look set to continue, with the side becoming less competitive every week right now. Rounding out the lower half, I've got the Paris Eternal remaining at 15, New York Excelsior dropping once to 14, a decent rise of 3 places for the Philadelphia Fusion to 13, whilst the Chengdu Hunters and Florida Mayhem swap places with them now at 12 and 11 respectively. I now have Paris at 15, which even I think is a bit harsh, as I think their overall skill level is very similar, if not the same as New York and Philly above them. The problem with Paris, and I'm sure their fans especially will understand this point, is they keep showing off some fantastic play, like soon as Widowmaker at this stage, that gets people excited and brings the team a few wins. Unfortunately, when you peel back these string of solid displays, you see that there's still problems at support, and main tank in particular, that just keep holding this team back and leading to the disappointment that's brought with this 3 and 4 stage. And with their loss to New York still in recent memory, I have them lower, despite a much closer 3-2 win over Philly. I'll talk about them in a minute. New York didn't play this week, but their sandbagging sees them slip once more, with a team that was below them at least showing some quality, which is why I moved them down. Will we see the side improve in week 5? Fans will desperately want to see it, but I wouldn't get your hopes up. Now we arrive at Philly, with a really strong end to their season, with an impressive 3-1 victory over Seoul, on paper. The reason I say on paper, and I'll discuss this a bit more when I get onto Seoul in a bit, is that 3-1 was kind of a flattering scoreline, which completely comes down to the play of EQO and Boombox on the Mei and Flex support heroes respectively, as these two were outstanding, and through some clutch plays in overtime, they were the key differences in picking up the win for the side, what could have very easily have been a loss. Carpe in particular was awful, and I'm keeping this PG. I can't believe I'm saying this of a player who was almost unplayable in 2018, and I can't explain it. He got dumpstered in the head-to-head with Fitz on every occasion, and he's lucky that Widow or Hanzo isn't important in the meta as Mei currently is, otherwise Philly could have easily lost. That said, a win's a win, so with this momentum heading into play-ins, I think a solid rise is deserving. Meanwhile, both Chengdu and Florida had solid past weeks, with the Mayhem picking up 2 4-0 wins, whilst the Hunters bounced back from a heavy defeat to San Francisco to defeat an improving Outlaws side 3-2 to keep their play-in hopes alive. With the consistency of Florida's success, however, I felt they deserved to move higher, especially given how inconsistent Chengdu have been, and the fact they only beat a subpar Houston side in 5 maps. That said, if both of these teams play to their peaks, I do believe they could beat some of the teams I have above them, but I don't think I can have them in the top 10 at the moment, given the Hunters' unpredictability. And the issue with Florida being they've largely destroyed bad teams in the past few weeks, whilst losing to ones I have ranked higher, excluding the London series, as the Spitfire simply didn't show up for that series, which is why I'm reluctant to move them higher for now. But speaking of my top 10, let's get straight into discussing whoever my top half, from 10 to 6. At 10 slips the LA Valiant down one spot. 9 seems the same fall for the Seoul Dynasty, whilst there's a bigger fall for the LA Gladiators at 8, who have dropped 4 places. Finally we see a riser at 7, and a big one at that, with the Spark rising 7 positions, whereas London nestled just above them at 6, often being put 1 spot lower. I don't want to spend too long on the Valiant, as I think this spot at 10 is perfectly positioned for them. They have some serious quality in their lineup, but in Stage 4, it's been a consistent story of defeating teams below them like Boston this week, and then losing to teams above them. So with a narrow win over Florida, a narrow loss to Seoul at Stage, I think 10 works quite well, but this trend will need to change in Week 5 if we want to sneak in at the last minute into the playoff picture. As for Seoul, what's most disappointing about their loss to Philly this week is that I'd argue that they very easily could have picked up the win here, which is why I haven't dropped them further. Fitz was fantastic and simply bullied Carpe in the head-to-head throughout the entire series, whilst the rest of the team put in a solid effort, perhaps with Marvel and Michelle not having their greatest series. But what lost them the game was Fletter and his abysmal May. Now I was not kind about Carpe earlier, but I'm restraining myself from not going on a full rant about Fletter here. In the win against Shanghai, he looked fine, but not even 2 days later, it seemed that he lost all of his ability to play on the hero and was played like a fiddle by EQO. Nearly every time Seoul were in a position to win, he would screw up his May wall, using it too early or too late in terms of the Holt hook combo, but saw Marvel and Michelle get brutalised throughout the match by the fusion. This happened all series. His blizzards got no value, and it just seemed like he was mentally boomed after map 1. Before I go into a meltdown, all I'll say is that at their best, like others around them, the Dynasty can cause problems to higher ranked teams, like they did with the Charge the other week, but too often it just falls apart, which is why I have them around the mid-table. Now quickly moving on to the Gladiators, I think it's time for me to admit I probably had them a little high than they should have been, as this team lost 3-2 this week to the Spark. The problem with the Gladiators is that they genuinely have the quality and potential at all positions to compete with the very best, as shown by taking the Shock to 5 maps very recently. Too often though, they play down to their competition and let games they really should be winning slip away from them, and that leaves me no choice but to finally drop them. One team that jumps drastically ahead of them is a Spark, who shoots up a crazy 7 spaces after picking up wins over the Fuel and Gladiators this week. This makes it 3 in a row for a team that looks to have finally found form and learnt how to finally play within the 2-2-2 meta. I can already tell that some people may think this is too high, and others may contest that they were too low to begin with, but what we've seen, really just over 2 weeks, is a drastic transformation in how the team operates, with Godsby stepping up to the plate now that Crystal is out of the equation, as the rest of the squad has slowly found its feet as well. That said, it did recently lose to the piss-poor Excelsior, which is why I hesitate to move them up any higher. With top 6 secured, they can rest easy no matter what happens next week. Lastly there's London, who have risked their top 6 spot after a dreadful loss to Atlanta this week. The Reign are a fabulous side, we'll be talking about in a bit. When it comes to the Spitfire, I'm just confused. At the moment they seem to be alternating between really good performances and then horrible ones, which makes ranking them any lower hard in terms of where they should fit in. I'm only keeping them this high because I still rate the Titans who they took to 5 maps, but I won't hesitate to drop them next week if I find out that I have Vancouver overrated. Finally we reach my top 5, in which I have the Guangzhou Charge replacing London at 5, Vancouver dropping 1 spot to 4, the same fall as the Justice who are now over at 3, as the Atlanta Reign propelled themselves up 5 positions to 2, but still at 1 are the San Francisco Shock. In a lot of other power rankings, I've seen people put the Charge at 4, and I can understand why, given how well they've been performing this stage, especially at DPS, with Happy and Nero, as they've confirmed a 6-1 stage after a 4-0 win over Dallas last week. That said, I'm not actually sure they've been properly tested. We need to remember that their loss came to London, and they were lucky to rescue their series against Seoul, whilst being taken to 5 maps also by Philly as well. All their wins have come against sides I have ranked lower, and that's why for the minute I'm reluctant to have them any higher. Vancouver only fall this week due to the rise of Atlanta, and after having no game this week, there's not a whole lot I can comment on them really. They sit at 4-1 this stage, and I still don't know how to properly judge them, but hopefully this should be cleared up in week 5. Washington fall to 3, simply because of their competitive loss to Atlanta. That aside though, they finished the stage in style, with a 3-1 win over Paris, to finish with a 6-1 record, which is amazing progress, considering where they were just a month ago. It's a real shame they'll miss out on the playoffs, but I think Corey and the rest of the boys should be able to build on this fantastic foundation at the start of 2-2-2, to potentially be a tough competitor to 2020. Atlanta's ascension to the top 2 was coming, but was halted due to their bye week in week 3 of the stage. The whole team has simply been fantastic in every series they've played, which peaked with their convincing win over the high-flying Justice this week. It kept their 7-0 stage alive, but was also giving them a real shot at making the top 6 should they close out over Dallas and Boston after beating London this week. I could spend a lot of time talking about how good each player has been, with Öztur getting a lot of plaudits, but I just want to say a quick word on FRD, or however you're meant to say it. I have to say, in the stages prior, I didn't really understand why he kept being subbed in over Dako, who I still think is the better diva in the head-to-head. However, on Roadhog, FRD has been a man possessed and has been playing so well that I have to applaud his quality, but I can't question his inclusion in the starting 6 at all right now. But with the Shock still unbeaten after an easy 4-0 win over Chengdu this week, I have to keep them at the summit. Week 5 will really test them properly, but they look to be the top team that has adapted the best from GOATs to 2-2-2, with their new starters Architect and Smurf playing really well, and only a slip-up next week could realistically unseat them from this top spot, at least in my eyes, before the playoffs. And with that, we reach the end of my Stage 4, Week 4 Power Rankings, and I'd like to thank you for watching. I'll probably be returning tomorrow with a video, either on the Overwatch League 2020 news, or another World Cup video, so let me know which you prefer. That said, if you enjoyed and don't want to miss out, please like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for this continuing competitive Overwatch coverage and content. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.